Hey, everyone! If you've ever thought about switching to an electric vehicle to save the environment, let me stop you for just a second. Have you ever wondered, is it really as eco-friendly as people claim? EVs are marketed as the ultimate solution to climate change. Zero emissions, sleek designs, and high-tech features. But here's the kicker. The reality is much more complicated than that. Today, I'm going to uncover 7 hidden truths about electric vehicles, EVs, and how they compare to petrol cars, especially when we focus on environmental factors. Stick with me for these insights because I promise by the end of this video, you'll look at EVs a whole lot differently. First, let's talk about the most marketed feature of EVs, zero emissions. No tailpipe, no fumes, just clean green energy on the go, right? Well, not exactly. While it's true that EVs produce no emissions when you drive them, that's only part of the story. We need to consider what I like to call the cradle-to-grave impact, the total environmental impact of a product, from the moment the raw materials are extracted from the earth, to its manufacturing, use, and ultimately, its disposal. Think of it like building a treehouse. Sure, once it's built, you're hanging out in the trees, enjoying the view, no problem. But you had to cut down those boards, maybe use some screws and nails, all sorts of things that had a cost somewhere else. That's what we're looking at with EVs. And when we apply that cradle-to-grave thinking to EVs, it gets interesting. Because producing an EV battery is an energy-intensive process. On average, it takes almost double the carbon emissions to manufacture an EV compared to a petrol car. That's a lot of upfront energy expenditure before you even turn the key for the first time. Why is that? It all comes down to the battery, my friends. That huge lithium-ion battery pack, the heart of an EV, is made from materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. These materials need to be mined, processed, and transported, and that whole process requires a tremendous amount of energy. Let's talk about mining. It's the foundation of our technology, not just EVs. Everything from our phones to our laptops, even some of the tools in my workshop, rely on materials mined from the earth. But the demand for these materials, especially for EV batteries, is skyrocketing, and that demand comes at a cost. EV batteries are heavily dependent on rare earth materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. Extracting these materials is not only expensive but also comes with huge environmental and social costs. We can't just look at the shiny finished product, we have to look at what it takes to get there. For example, lithium, a key ingredient in EV batteries, is often found in brine pools located in arid regions like the Atacama Desert in Chile. Now, extracting lithium from these brine pools requires massive amounts of water to be pumped up, which can lead to depletion of groundwater resources, impacting local ecosystems and communities. It's a delicate balance. And then there's cobalt, another critical component of EV batteries. The majority of the world's cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where mining operations are often plagued by unsafe working conditions, child labor, and environmental degradation. It's a complex issue with serious ethical implications. So, while your EV may not emit CO2 on the road, the damage done in creating its battery is something we cannot ignore. We need to ask ourselves, are we really solving the problem, or just shifting the problem upstream? Okay, so we've talked about the energy it takes to build an EV battery, and the often problematic mining practices involved in getting the raw materials. But the story doesn't end there. What happens to an EV battery when it reaches the end of its life? EV batteries are complex beasts, and recycling them isn't straightforward. New technologies are emerging, but only a small percentage are properly recycled. The lack of standardized processes makes it difficult. These batteries are full of valuable materials we want to keep out of landfills. The ones that don't get recycled often end up in landfills. This is a problem because they contain heavy metals and other toxic materials. These can leach into the environment, contaminating soil and groundwater. We're creating a new kind of waste problem with EVs. We need to invest in sustainable recycling solutions. Chapter 4, the energy source debate. Clean energy or dirty grid? Here's a question for you. When you plug your EV into a charging station, have you ever stopped to think about where that electricity is coming from? Because here's the thing. The environmental impact of charging your EV is directly tied to how that electricity is generated. If you live in a country like Iceland or Norway, where a large portion of the electricity comes from renewable sources like hydro or geothermal, then congratulations, you're driving on truly clean energy. But here's the catch. many parts of the world still rely heavily on fossil fuels like coal and natural gas for electricity generation. So if you're plugging your EV into a grid that's powered by coal, you're essentially just shifting the emissions from your car's tailpipe to a power plant smokestack. It's like thinking you're being sneaky by using your neighbor's Wi-Fi instead of your own. You're not actually reducing your internet usage, you're just changing where it's coming from. Now this isn't to say that EVs are pointless in areas with fossil fuel-powered grids. As we transition to cleaner energy sources, the grid will get cleaner, and so will your EV. But it's a crucial factor to consider when evaluating the overall environmental impact of electric vehicles. Chapter 5. The environmental cost of manufacturing. Alright, so we've covered the batteries, the mining, the disposal, and the energy sources. But there's another aspect of EV production that often gets overlooked, the environmental cost of manufacturing. Because building an electric vehicle, any vehicle for that matter, is a complex and resource-intensive process. It takes a lot of energy to mine, process, and transport all the raw materials that go into a car, whether it's steel for the chassis, plastic for the interior, or lithium for the battery. And all of these processes generate emissions. Now, studies have shown that producing an electric vehicle on average generates a higher amount of emissions compared to producing a petrol car. This is mainly due to the energy-intensive process of manufacturing the battery pack, which, as we've discussed, relies on materials with a significant environmental footprint. Think of it this way. You've got two identical cakes, same size, same frosting, everything, but one cake took twice as much flour, sugar, and butter to make. Which cake had a bigger impact on your pantry? That's what we're looking at with EV manufacturing. Now this doesn't mean that EVs are inherently worse for the environment than petrol cars. Over their lifespan, EVs generally have lower emissions because they don't produce tailpipe emissions. But it's a trade-off we need to be aware of. Chapter 6. Maintenance. Easier for EVs, but at what cost? One of the most appealing aspects of owning an electric vehicle is the promise of lower maintenance costs. EVs have fewer moving parts, translating to less wear and tear, and fewer trips to the mechanic. No more oil changes, no more spark plug replacements, no more dealing with finicky fuel injectors. It's a dream come true for anyone who dreads routine maintenance tasks. But here's the catch. While general maintenance costs are lower for EVs, battery replacements can be expensive. That massive battery pack has a limited lifespan, and replacing it isn't cheap. We're talking thousands of dollars, potentially tens of thousands. It's a significant expense every EV owner needs to be prepared for. And then there's the issue of what to do with the old battery. The lack of infrastructure can lead to these batteries ending up in landfills. So while lower maintenance costs are appealing, factor in the potential cost of battery replacement and disposal. Chapter 7. Range anxiety and practicality. Okay, let's talk about range anxiety. It's the elephant in the room, or maybe I should say the electric car in the garage when it comes to EV ownership. If you're someone who primarily drives short distances within a city or urban environment, then an EV might be a perfect fit. But what if you're someone who frequently embarks on long road trips? Someone who enjoys the open road and the freedom to explore without limitations? Well, that's where things get a little more complicated with EVs. See, while the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles is rapidly improving, it still has a long way to go to catch up with the ubiquitous network of petrol stations we have today. Especially in rural areas, finding a charging station can be a challenge. And even when you do find one, charging times for EVs can vary greatly depending on the type of charger and the battery capacity of your vehicle. Now compare that to a petrol car, where you can pull into a gas station, fill up your tank in a matter of minutes, and be back on the road. It's that convenience and flexibility that makes petrol cars so appealing for long journeys. Until charging times improve significantly, and charging stations become as commonplace as gas stations, range anxiety will continue to be a barrier for many potential EV buyers. So, are electric vehicles the ultimate solution to climate change or just another cleverly marketed product? The truth lies somewhere in the middle. EVs are an important step forward, but they're not a magic bullet. What can you do? Stay informed. Ask the right questions when shopping for a car. Consider the energy source in your area, the type of driving you do, and the long-term environmental impact of your choice. And most importantly, don't let the marketing hype blind you to the challenges and trade-offs. If this video got you thinking, give it a like and share it with your friends. Subscribe for more practical lessons and the truth behind modern tech. Together, we can make informed decisions that truly benefit our planet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.